Morning light fell across the dealership's glass walls and made bright squares on the tiled floor. Banners on thin poles moved in the slow wind outside. The lot was full. A delivery truck hummed near the side gate. Cars clicked and cooled in rows. Somewhere, a horn chirped twice and then stopped. Inside, the phones kept ringing. A printer spat out invoices in small bursts. A radio in the service bay played a soft song that nobody was really hearing. It was just another busy day, and most people looked past one another because they had places to be. Marcus parked his small white service van at the far edge of the lot. He liked to leave space for customers who were buying cars. He got out and did a quick check, van doors locked, toolbox strapped tight, clipboard in the front seat, business cards in his shirt pocket. He wore clean work clothes, but the cuffs had grease marks that never really washed out. He wiped his hands anyway, a habit he didn't break even when they were already clean. He took a breath, looked at the parts department sign, and walked in with an even pace. He was here for one thing, a specific fuel pump relay for a stranded customer 3 miles away. He had the part number written on a small note. He had also saved it on his phone in case anyone needed to scan the barcode. He liked being prepared. It saved time. He moved through the showroom where a bright red coupe sat on a turntable under lights. A kid pressed his face to the glass and smiled, and Marcus smiled back. Then he went through the door marked Service and Parts. At the counter, a young employee glanced up. He had a headset around his neck and a stack of forms under his elbow. His eyes went from Marcus's boots to the tool pouch on his belt. The smile he wore for the last customer faded. "Can I help you?" he asked, but the words sounded more like, "What do you want?" Marcus kept his voice calm and friendly. He placed the note on the counter and said, "Good morning. I need this relay. Cash or card is fine. My customer is waiting." The employee barely looked at the paper. "We only sell parts to our service clients," he said. "You need to schedule with us." There was a sign on the wall that read "Retail Parts Available" in big letters. It was set at an angle because one screw was a little loose. Marcus glanced at it, then back at the employee. He did not point at the sign. He did not raise his voice. He just tried again. "I understand. The part number is current. I can wait if you need to check stock." The employee made a face as if this were a test. He tapped at a keyboard without reading the note. Then he shook his head and said, "We don't have it. And even if we did, it's for our bays only." Marcus felt the small weight of the moment, the kind that pulled at a person's patience. He knew this tone. He had heard it in a dozen places with a dozen different uniforms. It sounded like a door closing that should have been open. He nodded once. "All right," he said. "Thank you." He stepped to the side to let the next person through. He did not want to make a scene. He made a quick call to the driver waiting by the road. He said he would try another source and be as fast as he could. As he moved away from the counter, a supervisor walked by, a man with a sharp haircut and a policy binder tucked under one arm. He looked at Marcus, not at the note in Marcus's hand, not at the sign on the wall, just at the tool pouch and the worn work boots. "Sir," the supervisor said, "this area is busy. If you're not a customer on today's schedule, please wait outside." Marcus kept his tone steady. "Understood," he said. He put the note back in his pocket and walked toward the wide door that opened to the service lane. The air in the lane felt warmer. Engines idled. A trainee in a blue shirt moved cars like chess pieces, 2 feet forward, 2 feet back, line them up, keep the path clear. The trainee looked nervous. He had to switch on wipers to find the turn signals. A woman with 2 small kids stood near an SUV. She held her phone in one hand and a paper cup in the other. The kids were quiet and tired. The older one pressed a sticker onto the younger one's sleeve. The mother's eyes moved from the service desk to the dashboard and back. She tried to talk to a service writer, but the writer was juggling 3 clipboards and a headset and said, "If you don't have an appointment, we're booking into next week." Marcus didn't step in. It was not his place yet. He just noticed things. He noticed a faint ticking from the SUV, a light, dry sound that matched the rhythm of a failing relay he had heard many times. He noticed the smell in the lane, too hot oil, new rubber, and something thin and sharp that could be old fuel residue. He scanned out of habit. Where were the cones? Where was the spill kit bucket? Where were the fire extinguishers and were they sealed? There was a red extinguisher mounted on a pillar near the door. The gauge was in the green, but the safety pin was missing. A white zip tie held the handle closed. It would probably work, but a missing pin meant someone had used it or tested it and not reset it the right way. He looked for the inspection tag. Last punch was months ago. He did not like that. A porter pushed by with a stack of keys and said, "Excuse me, sir," without slowing. The trainee turned a silver sedan into the lane and revved it too hard. The car coughed once and the hood shivered. The trainee winced and let it idle. The sound leveled out. He gave a small thumbs up to no one. The mother tried again with the service writer. "I just need someone to listen," she said, voice thin with worry. It started on the highway. A light came on. "It's a clicking sound now. I can't come back next week. I have to drive the kids to school." The service writer pointed at a crowded schedule displayed on a small screen. "I get it," he said, "but there's nothing open." Marcus was still near the doorway. He could hear every word. He could also hear the slow, steady beat of that ticking from the SUV, the one that didn't care about schedules or policy binders. He didn't want to cross a line. He knew shops had rules. He honored rules. He also honored safety. He waited and watched, hands relaxed at his sides. The delivery truck at the side gate rolled forward. Its brakes let out a soft sigh. Space got tight in the lane. 2 cars sat nose to nose while a third tried to back out. A man in a hat lit a cigarette near the curb, took one pull, then saw the no smoking sign and crushed it in a hurry. The tiny ember smudged into a dark line that ran to the drain where a light sheen was already floating. Someone should throw down absorbent granules, Marcus thought. He looked again for the white bucket with the blue lid. He didn't see it. The supervisor from the parts counter appeared in the lane and made a quick circle with his eyes, the kind of sweep that looks busy without seeing much. He noticed Marcus and stopped. "Sir," he said, "I told you to wait outside." Marcus kept his tone level. "I am outside," he said. "I'll be out of your way in a moment." His voice had a steady weight. He did not crowd. He kept one shoulder toward the driveway and one toward the door, a habit that kept paths open. The supervisor followed his gaze to the pillar. He did not notice the missing extinguisher pin. He did not notice the sheen near the drain. He did not hear the dry tick from the SUV. He saw only a man in work clothes and decided that was the problem. "We can't have you hanging around the lane," he said. "It confuses people." Before Marcus could answer, the SUV's dashboard flashed a warning. The mother got in to pull forward, and the ticking grew louder, more like a fast metronome now. She paused, eyes on the light. The older child touched her sleeve and asked, "Are we going home?" The mother swallowed and said, "Yes, in a minute." A quiet pop sounded from the silver sedan's hood, almost nothing, like a knuckle cracked in a library. The trainee looked up, startled. A thin thread of vapor slipped from the grill and vanished. He glanced around. No one else seemed to notice. He put his hand on the hood, felt the heat, and pulled back. He shook his head, embarrassed, then moved the car the last 2 feet into line. He did not look under it. He did not see the drip trail that had begun, a dark line no wider than a shoelace. Marcus watched the line. It was fresh. He followed it with his eyes to the drain. He looked again for tools, cones, absorbent, a broom. None were close. The porter with the key ring hurried past again. "Hey," Marcus said in a friendly tone, "you might have a small leak from that one." The porter gave a quick shrug without slowing. "Not my area," he said, and was gone. The lane noise rose and fell like a tide. Phones rang. A horn tooted. A baby cried for a moment. Tires made soft rubbing sounds when they turned in place. Somewhere deeper in the shop, an impact wrench rattled for a quick burst, then stopped. Through it all, the ticking kept pace in the SUV's engine bay. It was not a big sound. It was a small sound that could lead to a big problem if someone ignored it. The mother looked at the service desk again. She was not angry. She was tired. She had the look of someone who had a list of small tasks and a small window to finish them, and now the window was closing. She stepped out of the SUV and asked, "Could anyone just listen for 10 seconds? The service writer held up a finger, as if to say 1 minute, but he was pulled into another call. Marcus took a slow step toward her, careful not to crowd. "Ma'am," he said gently, "if that light stays on and that sound keeps up, it may be safer to turn the engine off for now." His tone was polite. He stood at an angle so she could ignore him if she wished. She looked at him, at his clean but worn clothes, at the tool pouch, at his calm face. She nodded once and turned the key to off. The ticking faded into the warm quiet of metal cooling. She pressed her lips together, relief and worry crossing her face at the same time. "Thank you," she said. "Of course," Marcus said. He didn't add more. He didn't tell her what he thought it was. He didn't want to step on shop rules. The supervisor saw them speaking and started over again, but a customer grabbed his sleeve to ask about a billing question, and he turned aside. For a moment the lane held still. It felt like the breath before a note. Marcus looked once more at the pillar. The extinguisher's gauge was still in the green. The missing pin bothered him more now that the drip trail led to the drain. He checked the ceiling for sprinklers, checked the wall for the spill kit, checked the floor for clutter that could trip someone if they had to move fast. He made a picture in his mind of how he would clear the lane if he had to, who would stand where, which cars could be rolled without power, which key rings might be closest. He did not want to do any of that. He wanted to buy a simple relay and be on his way. But the lane asked him to pay attention, and he did. He stepped back toward the edge of the lot, taking himself out of the direct flow. He called his stranded customer again and said, "I may be a little delayed. I'm working on another source for the part." The driver said he would wait. He trusted Marcus because Marcus never rushed a job and never left someone guessing. As Marcus ended the call, the delivery truck eased even closer. Its diesel engine sent a soft tremor through the air. Two cars faced each other in the narrow channel. The trainee tried to wave one back, then forward, then back again, and got flustered. The silver sedan's owner walked up with a coffee and asked, "Is my car done?" The trainee said, "Almost," because he didn't know what else to say. Someone opened the sedan's door, and the interior light came on. It made the faint vapor near the grille look thicker than it was. A bystander frowned but did not speak. The drip line widened one more hair's width. The no smoking sign stared down from the wall, bright and ignored. Marcus felt the tiny hairs on his arms lift, not from fear, but from awareness. This was a lot of small things piling into one small space. He looked at the mother, now standing with her kids near the SUV, the key out, the brake set. He gave her a small nod, the kind strangers share when they are both being careful. She nodded back. He shifted his weight and decided he would not leave just yet. He would give the lane 5 minutes. He would simply watch. Sometimes that was all a place needed: a pair of eyes, a calm voice, a little care until someone with the right badge and the right clipboard noticed the right things. He looked once more toward the parts door. The sign still said retail parts available. It was still tilted because of that loose screw. Marcus did not feel anger, only a steady resolve, as if a line had been drawn and he could choose which side to stand on. He chose to stand where people were, where a mother kept her kids close, where a trainee tried to do the right thing too fast, where a supervisor hurried past problems he did not see. Marcus stood with his hands open and his eyes clear, ready to say a simple word if the next small thing turned into a big one. The 5 minutes Marcus promised himself stretched into more because the lane did not calm down. The delivery truck rolled in a little farther, and the driver leaned over his wheel to see a spot where he could unload. A service porter pointed vaguely, then waved him to wait. Engines idled nose to nose. The air felt thick with heat and routines. The red coupe on the showroom turntable kept spinning slowly under bright lights, but out here the glow was softer, a mix of daylight and shadow that hid small problems until they moved. The mother took a breath, opened the door of her SUV again, and turned the key partway to wake the dash. The ticking came back, not loud, but sharper than before, like a pencil tapping a desk. A small amber icon lit up by the speedometer. Her face tightened. She glanced at the service desk, where the writer was still pinned to calls and clipboards, then looked at her 2 kids. The older child whispered something that made the younger one nod. They were trying to be brave the way kids try when they read a room and see that the grown ups are trying, too. A light breeze moved through the lane and carried with it a thin smell that did not belong, not just hot oil now, but an edge like solvent, faint and quick. Marcus tracked it with his eyes the way he would follow a ripple on water. It seemed to drift from the silver sedan, the one the trainee had parked in line. The trainee was now a few cars away, leaning into a different door to find a hood release lever, his mouth pressed flat with concentration. He was doing many new things at the edge of his skill, and he was alone in that moment with more tasks than time. The sedan made a gentle cough under the hood, barely more than a breath. A wisp of smoke, so thin it could be mistaken for warm air, slipped out the grill and vanished. The sedan's owner, the person with the coffee, turned back from a conversation and saw nothing wrong yet. He checked his watch. He took a small sip. He shuffled his feet and stood like a person who wants to believe the day will keep its promises. Near the curb, the man who had crushed out his cigarette earlier looked guilty in the way people do when they know a rule matters after they almost broke it. He kept his hands in his pockets and glanced around for a better place to stand. The sheen near the drain caught a ribbon of light and showed itself for what it was, a thin line of something that should not be free on concrete. It spread slowly, like a thought that was not quite finished. Marcus consciously shifted his focus so he would not miss the mother's situation. She was the one with the immediate choice: try to leave with a suspect relay and 2 kids in the back, or shut down in a cramped lane and hope for help that might not come today. He stepped one small pace closer, still leaving her space. "Ma'am," he said gently, "I know you need to go. But if that light is on with that sound, it could be better to keep the engine off for now. We can roll you to a safer spot if needed." She looked at him, searched his face for any sign of pushiness or pride, and found neither. "I can't come back next week," she said, voice low. "I have work. They have school." "I hear you," he said. "Even 5 minutes in a safer spot will help you decide the next step without pressure." Before she could answer, the supervisor from the parts area came through the side door again, scanning the lane with that quick managerial look that counts heads and cars but not conditions. His eyes found Marcus as if drawn by a magnet. "Sir, I've asked you not to linger here," he said. Marcus's reply stayed calm. "I'll be on my way shortly." The supervisor opened his binder as if that would settle something. "Please step beyond the cones." There were no cones. Marcus looked at the blank strip of concrete where cones should have been, then returned his eyes to the supervisor without changing his expression. "Of course," he said, and he made a show of moving half a step toward the outer line, which kept him out of the central flow but still close enough to help if someone needed a warning. A security guard came from the lobby and stood by the glass door. He was older, with the patient stance of someone who had spent years watching chaos arrive and leave. He looked at the flow of cars, the crowded lane, the mother and her children, the delivery truck inching forward, the missing cones. He did not intervene yet. He simply set his feet where he could see everything and waited, the way a steady person waits so others can go about their jobs. The sedan's hood gave the smallest tremor, then went still. The wisp did not return. The trainee finally located the other car's hood latch, raised it with a jerk, and frowned. He put the prop rod in place, then jogged to the tool cart. The cart had wrenches arranged from largest to smallest, but a socket set was missing half of its pieces. He shook his head and picked what he could. He was not careless. He was rushed. Rushed makes careful people look careless if no one slows the clock. The mother shifted her weight and spoke to Marcus in a softer voice. "If I can't get help here, I'll have to risk it," she said. "I know that sounds bad, but I don't have someone to call." "Understood," Marcus said. "May I listen for 10 seconds with the key on but without starting? It can help me say one helpful sentence." She hesitated, then nodded. She turned the key to accessory. The ticking returned, quick and steady. Marcus leaned slightly, hands behind his back to show he would not touch anything. He heard the pattern and matched it to the list in his head. He met her eyes again. "I think a relay is failing," he said quietly. "If you try to go and it quits on a busy road, that's worse than pausing here." She let the breath out through her nose. "I thought so," she said. "I was hoping it wasn't." At the service desk, a new voice cut through the general noise. "Is there someone who can check my car? It smells funny." It was the owner of the silver sedan. The service writer put a call on hold and said, "1 minute," the phrase that tries to stretch like a bridge over a gap that is not 1 minute long. A driver in the delivery truck opened his window to get air and looked out at the lane with mild curiosity. He had seen busier places. He had also seen calm places go sideways because small things stacked up. He drummed his fingers on the wheel and turned off his engine to be polite. The sudden quiet from the big vehicle made the remaining sounds clearer, the whir of a radiator fan, the tick from the SUV, and a tiny drip that touched concrete with a sound too soft to hear unless you were listening for it. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked the screen and saw a text from the stranded driver across town, "Any update?" He typed back quickly with one hand, "Working on it. Safety issue here. We'll keep you posted." He slid the phone away and kept his eyes up. The porter with the keys came past again. Marcus tried a different approach, one that used the porter's authority rather than challenged it. "Hey," he said in an easy tone, "can you do me a favor and ask for spill granules? There's a slick near the drain. It'll make the manager happy if it's handled before someone slips." The porter stopped because the phrase "make the manager happy" fit inside his current world. He looked down and saw the sheen. He did not know how big a deal it was, but he knew that wet-looking things near drains became paperwork. "Yeah, okay," he said, and jogged toward a back room. The supervisor, seeing the porter respond to Marcus's words, frowned. He started to say something as if he needed to recover a boundary, but he was interrupted by a small cough from the sedan that was less like breath and more like a hiccup. A curl of smoke lifted again, not dramatic, but real, and this time a bystander saw it at the same moment as the sedan's owner. "Hey," the bystander said, pointing. The sound of the word cut a bright line through the lane. The trainee turned his head. His eyes widened. He looked for an extinguisher and saw two, the one near the pillar with the missing pin and another deeper in the shop behind a rolling cart. He grabbed the closer one out of instinct, then hesitated when he noticed the zip tie where a pin should be. He glanced around for approval or direction, saw none, and froze for one breath too long. The security guard shifted his stance and moved 2 steps closer to the sedan, not rushing, not slow, just placing himself where he could speak and be heard. "Let's keep engines off in this lane," he said in a level tone that carried. "Keep space around that vehicle." He did not shout fire. He did not feed panic. He spoke like someone asking for room to move furniture. The sedan's owner backed away with his coffee and nearly bumped the mother's older child. Marcus stepped between them in a small, natural way and guided the child back with the lightest touch on a shoulder, then let his hand fall, respectful and quick. "You're okay," he said softly. He nodded to the mother. "Would you take 2 steps that way with them?" She did, and the children followed, eyes wide, clutching each other's sleeves. The supervisor found his voice again and directed it at Marcus because that felt simple. "Do not touch anything," he said, pointing as if a finger could draw a line that reality would obey. "Liability," he added, a word people say when they want safety without action. Marcus did not argue. He looked at the trainee. "Gauge in green," he asked gently. The trainee nodded, fingers white on the handle. "Good," Marcus said. "Stay calm. Short bursts, not long blasts. Hood latch, do you know where it is?" The trainee swallowed and nodded again, but he did not move. The supervisor took a breath to object, then hesitated because the trainee looked like a person on a thin ledge and Marcus's voice sounded like a handrail. The porter returned with a white bucket that had a blue lid and the words absorbent stenciled on the side. He set it down near the sheen by the drain and looked for a scoop. There was none. He popped the lid with his keys and used his hand like a cup, pouring pale granules in an arc that caught the light and turned the shiny patch into a dull, safer patch. It was not perfect. It was better. The service director had not yet appeared, but the lane was beginning to arrange itself under a new kind of attention. Engines clicked off. People stepped back. Space opened around the sedan and, almost by accident, around the SUV as well. The security guard lifted a hand with his palm down in a universal sign for steady, then lowered it after a second when he saw the message had landed. The smoke from the sedan did not rush. It lingered like a thought that wanted to become a sentence and could not find the right word. The trainee's breath was quick. He looked from the extinguisher to the hood release and back again. The sedan's owner said, "Is it going to blow?" which is what people say because movies taught them to say it. The guard answered calmly, "We don't want open flame. We want distance and quiet." "Thank you." Marcus glanced at the pillar again. The missing pin still bothered him. He checked the ceiling once more. He checked the floor for something someone could trip over. He checked the line of sight to the exit. He did not reach for the extinguisher because he had been told not to touch anything, and he respected the forms of places even when the forms were imperfect. He kept his voice ready instead, because sound can move faster than hands when hands are not allowed. The supervisor turned a page in his binder without seeing it. He was breathing faster now as if he had jogged, but he had not moved much. He looked like a person who wanted a next step that would not accept responsibility. He said, "Someone get the service director, to no one and everyone." The mother squeezed her children's hands. She looked at Marcus. "Thank you," she mouthed. He shook his head once, a small no that meant, "You don't have to thank me for standing still with you." In the far bay, an impact wrench barked again, then fell silent, as if it realized the sound did not fit the moment. The delivery truck driver watched with his chin in his hand and his window down, ready to move if anyone asked. He looked like a man who had seen a warehouse floor go from calm to busy and back 100 times. He was waiting for a sign, any sign, that told him what role he played here. The sedan gave another breath of vapor, a little thicker, and the hood trembled. That movement snapped the trainee into action. He reached for the hood release inside the car with a suddenness that made the supervisor flinch. The trainee popped the latch, hurried to the front, and hesitated again, because opening a hood when there is smoke asks for a plan. He half remembered one. He looked at Marcus a second time, not as a stranger but as a person who had put calm into the air. "Stand to the side," Marcus said gently. "Hands clear of the gap. Lift and step back. If you see flame, short squeezes at the base. Breathe." The trainee did what he was told. He stood to the side, lifted the hood an inch, felt heat touch his face, and let the hood open higher while he kept his body at an angle. He did not see flame yet, only a darker cluster of smoke from near a brittle hose and an electrical connector that did not look right. He raised the extinguisher halfway, waiting for a burst that did not come. The crowd that had not been a crowd a minute ago held its breath together without being asked. The supervisor took a step forward as if to claim the moment, then stopped, unsure. The service writer at last set down a phone and turned, finally seeing the picture as a whole. The security guard took one more step into the open space and repeated, steady as a metronome, "Engines off. Give room." The sedan did nothing dramatic yet. It exhaled more smoke and then paused, the way a problem sometimes checks to see if anyone is paying attention. People were. The trainee's hands steadied. The porter poured another arc of granules by the drain. The mother kept her children close and quiet. The delivery truck stayed off. The lane found a slow rhythm that felt like the hush before a choice. Marcus kept one eye on the sedan and one on the SUV. He did not forget the ticking, the amber light, the relay that could turn a simple exit into a hard stop at the worst place. He was ready to ask for help to roll the SUV into the shallow dip near the curb where it would rest safe and quiet. He waited for the moment that would let him say the words without adding another thread to the knot. Then, at last, the service director came through the door with the long stride of someone who had been pulled from a meeting that was about numbers and now faced something that was about people. He saw the open hood, the smoke, the organized space, the missing cones, the absorbent on the ground, the trainee with an extinguisher, the security guard's calm face, the mother holding her kids, and Marcus standing slightly apart with his hands relaxed and his eyes steady. The director took all of that in as if he had been waiting to see it arranged this way so he could decide what to do. He opened his mouth to speak just as the smoke thickened one shade darker, enough to make the trainee flinch and lift the extinguisher higher. The moment balanced on the edge between precaution and action, between a day that would stay ordinary and a day that would be remembered. The lane grew quiet enough that the tiny tick from the SUV could still be heard in the pauses between breaths. Everyone waited for the next small thing. The service director lifted his hand to ask a question, but the engine made the choice for him. A small flame licked up past a brittle hose at the front corner of the silver sedan's engine bay, not wild, but sudden and real. It made a dry hoof, the sound of something that could become worse if no one acted. The trainee's eyes went wide. He raised the extinguisher higher, but his elbow locked. He had the tool and the will, but not the breath. Marcus stepped one pace closer, not rushing, not slow. He kept his voice steady and aimed it at the trainee. "Short bursts at the base," he said. "Not the smoke. The base." The trainee nodded like a person who just found a rung on a ladder. He squeezed the handle, and a clean white puff cut across the small flame. The fire shrank but tried to come back. The trainee took a breath and gave another short squeeze, sweeping a half-moon from left to right. The flame folded down and disappeared into foam and shadow. The lane exhaled as a group without meaning to. The security guard gave a small nod and said, "Good." The service director's shoulders dropped half an inch, only noticeable because the tension had been high. The supervisor near the pillar looked around as if the air had cheated him of a speech he had prepared. Marcus did not let the moment end there. "Keep the hood propped," he said gently to the trainee. "Don't slam it. Watch for reignition." He turned his head slightly and addressed the nearest porter. "Battery ground. 10 mm. Do you have it?" The porter looked down at his card, then at Marcus, unsure whose authority counted. The service director solved it by saying, "Get it," in a firm, simple tone. The porter rolled a small tray over. Marcus did not reach in. He pointed. "That one. Thank you." He met the trainee's eyes again. "You okay?" The trainee swallowed and said, "Yes," and the yes sounded a little like "I will be." A thin curl of smoke rose again from under a plastic shroud. It was stubborn, not strong. Marcus nodded to the trainee. "One more short burst to that corner." The trainee did it, and the smoke stopped. Now the heat felt like the last breath from a space heater when you switch it off. "Battery ground," Marcus repeated, still calm. He looked at the service director. "Sir, with your permission." The director glanced at the supervisor, then back at Marcus, and said, "Please." That one word placed care over paperwork. Marcus accepted it with a short nod. He reached into his belt pouch and pulled a small wrench. He had not taken a tool out until now. He did not move like a show. He moved like a person who had done this 100 times in places where fewer people watched. He kept his arms close and his steps measured. He placed the wrench on the ground cable's nut and turned a quarter, then another quarter. When it was loose, he lifted the cable and tucked it back so it would not spring to the terminal. "That lowers risk," he said, for the trainee, for the porter, and for the director. "We still watch. Hot spots can hide." The mother and her children stood near the safer edge of the lane. The older child whispered, "He sounds like the man on the airplane video who tells everyone what to do." The mother gave the small smile of a person who wants to reassure her children and herself at the same time. She looked at Marcus with a grateful weight that did not need words yet. The service director crouched a little to see the area Marcus had treated, careful not to crowd the trainee. "What do you think caused it?" he asked. Marcus kept his answer simple. "Heat, brittle plastic, a seep that found a path," he said. "Small thing. Big if ignored." The director nodded once. He looked past the engine bay to the pillar with the extinguisher and saw the missing pin for the first time. He saw the absorbent on the ground. He saw the gap where cones should have stood. He took those facts in without moving his face. The security guard, who had been quiet but present, shifted closer to Marcus with the lightness of someone who knows how to move without drawing attention. He spoke low, a private channel. "You served," he said, not as a question but as a recognition. Marcus gave a small nod that might have been missed by anyone who was not looking for it. The guard's eyes went to the ring of keys in Marcus's hand. A coin hung from it on a flattened loop, old and scuffed, with a tiny trident and anchor pattern that had been rubbed thin by years. The guard's gaze met Marcus's, and the two men understood each other without ceremony. The guard's mouth twitched into the shadow of a proud smile, and then his face returned to neutral. The supervisor, maybe to feel useful, said, "We should call someone," even though the paramedics were already on the way because a bystander had tapped a non-emergency number the moment smoke appeared. The service writer, freshly freed from his headset, stepped to the edge of the circle and said, "Is everyone okay?" The sedan's owner, still holding the coffee he had almost dropped, nodded too fast. "That was, thanks," he said, looking from the trainee to Marcus, unsure who to thank more. Marcus redirected the gratitude with a small gesture. "He acted," he said, pointing to the trainee. The trainee straightened by a degree you could measure. "Sometimes the right thanks is a mirror." The porter finished spreading absorbent in a second arc and used the heel of his shoe to work it into the sheen. The powder drank the shine and left a dry field. The delivery truck driver gave a small thumbs up out his window to the security guard, who returned it with a tiny lift of his chin, as if to say, "We see you. Hold steady." The service director glanced at the mother and then at the SUV. He heard, maybe for the first time, the soft tick Marcus had been listening to for 10 minutes. "That one?" he asked. Marcus kept his voice even. "Likely a relay." Her dash lit up. She turned it off. Good choice. The director nodded, then looked at the supervisor. Why wasn't she helped? The supervisor opened his binder as if a page could shield him. He said, "We're booked out." Policy says. The director lifted a hand, and the sentence ran out of road. A paramedic unit rolled in quiet, no siren, only lights, the way it comes when the call says small but check. Two paramedics stepped down, calm and efficient. They asked the sedan's owner if he was okay, asked the trainee if he was okay, looked at the engine bay, looked at the extinguisher gauge, looked at the absorbent, and said, "Good catches." One of them recognized the way Marcus had positioned people. He had seen that kind of spacing before in places with different uniforms. He gave Marcus a nod that belonged to a shared language. The security guard leaned near the service director and spoke softly. "He knows what he's doing," he said, tipping his chin toward Marcus. Quiet command. Seen it before. The director's eyes went to Marcus's keys, the scuffed coin, the set of his shoulders, the way he kept his back to a wall and his eyes on the corners. "Navy?" the director asked, not loud. Marcus gave a single nod. He was not going to make a story of it. The guard added one more soft word, the kind that told a truth without breaking privacy: "Teams." The shape of the moment changed. It did not turn to applause or spectacle. It turned to deeper attention. The director stepped forward and addressed the small circle. "Thank you all for staying calm," he said. Then he looked at Marcus and said, "Thank you for the assist." Marcus answered with the same few words he always used when that kind of gratitude came his way: "Happy to help." He did not add, "I was told not to touch anything," or "I asked for permission." He did not list the missing cones, the late absorbent, the months-old inspection tag. He did not need to. The facts were visible now. The director faced the trainee. "You did well," he said, voice clear. "You listened and acted. Take a breath." The trainee let out a breath he had been holding and smiled in a quick, embarrassed way that showed relief more than pride. He looked at Marcus and said, "Thank you, sir." Marcus shook his head. "You did it," he said. "We just used our words." The mother asked, "Can someone please look at my car now?" She did not say it with anger. She said it with the tired hope of a person who has waited to be seen. The director turned to her at once. "Yes," he said. He looked at the service writer. "We'll check this vehicle now. No charge for a quick safety check. Please arrange a ride if she needs one." The service writer nodded, already moving. Marcus stepped near the SUV again, hands visible. "If I may," he said to the director, and got a nod. He asked the mother to turn the key to accessory. The tick returned, steady, as if it had been waiting for its cue. Marcus listened, then asked her to turn the key off. He met her eyes. "I still believe it's a relay," he said, simple and direct. "It can fail without warning. Best not to drive it today." The mother closed her eyes for a moment, relief and worry mixing, then opened them. "Thank you," she said. "I'll do whatever you advise." The director looked at the supervisor again, then at the sign over the parts door that said "Retail Parts Available," tilted by a loose screw that was now obvious to everyone. He read the words as if for the first time. He turned back to Marcus. "You came here for a relay?" he asked. Marcus nodded. "For another client," he said. "I can source it elsewhere." The director stood quiet for a beat. You could see him place the morning's pieces together: a busy lane, a mother with kids, a leak near a drain, a trainee under pressure, an extinguisher with a missing pin, a posted promise not kept, a stranger who stayed and helped with calm words and careful hands. He looked at the supervisor and said, as evenly as the security guard had spoken earlier, "We sell parts to retail buyers. We honor the sign. We keep safety gear up to date. We help people who are in a bind. The supervisor started to defend himself with, but the policy the director cut in, not harsh, but final. We serve people, he said. We follow safety. Write down those two policies. The paramedics finished their checks and gave a short report: no injuries, small incident controlled early, engine power disconnected, area treated with absorbent. They offered to stay while the sedan cooled. The director thanked them. The sedan's owner said, "I'm sorry for the trouble," and the paramedic answered, "You did the right thing by stepping back, because telling people they did one thing right helps them do the next thing right." The security guard gave Marcus a look that asked a quiet question: "Are you okay?" Marcus answered with a small nod and a half smile that said, "I'm fine." The guard shifted his weight and stood a little closer, not because he expected trouble, but because old habits sometimes draw steady people into the same small space. A few customers who had watched the scene started to whisper. He knew exactly what to do. "Did you see how he talked to the kid? That coin, my cousin showed me one like that once." The whispers were not gossip. They were small notes of respect moving through a room. They were the sound of a story building a frame in people's minds: the man in work clothes who kept his voice low and made the right things happen at the right time. The service writer brought a small cart to the SUV and began a quick check under the dash. He looked at Marcus for confirmation, and Marcus gave a small nod toward the relay box. The writer found the slot, tapped the casing lightly, saw the dash light flicker, and nodded back. "We'll swap this," he said to the mother. "We'll get you a ride home if you want." The mother's shoulders loosened. The younger child leaned against her and sighed in the universal language of "We are going to be okay now." The director turned to Marcus again with a different kind of attention. "What's your name?" he asked. "Marcus," he said. "Marcus Hale." "Mr. Hale," the director said, "I apologize for how you were treated at the counter. That was wrong." Marcus said, "Thank you, because accepting a clean apology is a kind of respect, too." The director looked toward the parts door. "We will honor the sign," he said again, "this time for the room. We will replace expired gear today. We will stage cones and spill kits in this lane. We will do a 10-minute safety drill before lunch." He did not raise his voice. He did not make it a speech. He said it like instructions before a mission. The supervisor did not argue. The trainee looked relieved to be given steps he could follow. The security guard, still standing near Marcus, spoke in that same low tone. "You carried calm into the room," he said. "That's a gift." Marcus shook his head. "Not a gift," he said. "Practice." The guard smiled with his eyes. "Fair enough." Someone snapped a photo of the absorbent on the concrete and the open hood, not to post, but to remember what before looked like. The small white clouds from the extinguisher settled into quiet dust on the black plastic and silver metal. A breeze moved through and carried away the last smell of hot plastic. The lane did not go back to normal. It went forward to something better than normal because people had seen what normal missed. Marcus stood a little straighter, not because he wanted to be seen, but because the moment had asked for his best and he had given it. He looked at the mother's kids. The older one gave him a tiny, serious nod. He returned it with the same gravity children give when they shake hands with someone they believe is brave. He slipped his wrench back into his pouch and checked that the battery cable was clear. He looked at the trainee and said, "Nice work." The trainee said, "I was scared." Marcus said, "You were careful. Keep that." The service director glanced at the scuffed coin on Marcus's keys one more time. He did not ask for a story. He did not need the details to respect what the coin meant. He lifted his chin to Marcus in thanks the way the security guard had done earlier. Marcus returned the nod. Then he took one step back and let the lane run on its own again, because the goal had never been to take over. The goal had been to help the place find its own steady rhythm, the one that keeps people safe and moves them along without fuss. Around them, the day resumed, but it carried a new note under the regular sounds. It was the sound of people who had seen a near miss and learned, in a gentle way, how to keep the next one from happening. It was the quiet shift that happens when someone shows, without drama, how to do the first 60 seconds right. The lane began to breathe again after the small fire was out, but the day did not simply roll back to normal. The service director asked the paramedics for a short note, thanked them, and then looked around as if he were seeing his shop for the first time. The porter kept working the absorbent with the heel of his shoe until the sheen turned into a dry patch. The trainee wiped his hands on a clean rag and tried to slow his own pulse. The security guard stayed where he could see both the open hood and the SUV with the worried mother and her kids. Marcus took a half step back to give the staff room to move. He checked the battery ground again to make sure it was clear and safe, then glanced at the wall where the extinguisher hung. The missing pin still bothered him the way a loose seat belt bothers a driver. He did not fix it because it was not his wall to fix. He simply noticed it and kept it in mind. His phone buzzed with a new text from the stranded driver across town. "Any luck?" "I'm still on the shoulder." Marcus typed back, "I'm on it. Please stay safe. Hazard lights on. I'll update soon." He looked at the parts door and thought about the relay he had tried to buy earlier. He could try a different store, but the nearest one might not have stock. The clock was part of the pressure now. The service director called the team together for 1 minute, not a lecture, just a clear moment. "Engines off in this lane," he said. "Cones staged here and here. Spill kit at arm's reach. Check extinguisher tags before lunch. We'll reset and reopen." He pointed without raising his voice. People moved. You could feel the place shifting from habits to intention. The mother touched Marcus's sleeve. "Do you think I can get home today?" she asked. Her voice held that mix of hope and worry that comes from trying to plan around children's meals and school and work. Marcus kept his reply simple. "Yes, but not by driving this now. They can swap the relay or set up a ride for you. Both are safer than rolling the dice." She nodded. "Okay," she said, almost a whisper, and held her kids a little closer. The supervisor from the parts counter appeared again, the policy binder still under his arm, like a shield. He wanted to reclaim order by using rules as a line. He found Marcus first, as if all roads of blame led there. "Sir," he said, "you were told not to interfere. We cannot have outside workers giving instructions. Liability." He said the last word like a stamp. The service director heard it and turned. He had watched most of what had happened. He had also seen what had not happened: no panic, no chaos, no harm. "He didn't interfere," the director said in a level tone. "He made people safer. We asked for help, and he responded." The supervisor opened his binder to a page with a printed policy about authorized personnel and tapped it with a finger. "It says we use judgment," the director replied. "And we honor our own sign that offers retail parts." His eyes flicked to the tilted sign. "Which you did not honor." The supervisor shifted his weight. "Mobile mechanics take parts and then we lose service work," he said. "We have quotas. We serve people," the director said, not louder, but firmer. "That is the only quota that matters when safety is at stake or when someone is stranded. If we do that, business follows." A quiet ripple went through the small group nearby. The trainee looked at the floor but listened with all his attention, storing the words. The security guard's eyes were steady. He had watched many conversations like this in many uniforms. He knew that one sentence can reset a place if the right person says it without anger. A customer who had filmed the smoke on his phone stepped closer, awkward. "I recorded a little," he said. "In case you need it for training. I can send it to you, not post it." The director thanked him. "Please share it with me," he said. We'll learn from it. The customer nodded, relieved. It mattered to him to be useful, not just a witness. Marcus began to step away to give space, but the director turned to him. Mr. Hale, he said, you came for a relay, yes? Marcus nodded. For a different car, he said. A driver is waiting. The director looked at the supervisor. Check stock, he said. Now. The supervisor hesitated, then started typing at the counter terminal. It's on hold, he said. Shop use only. Release the hold, the director said. We don't. The supervisor started, and then stopped when he saw the director's face. He clicked, scrolled, sighed, and clicked again. We have two, he said at last. One in bin A17. One in overflow. The words landed heavy because they showed what the morning really was, not lack, not policy, but a choice. The director looked to Marcus. We will sell you one at retail, he said. And we will install the other for this customer now. He turned to the service writer. Swap the relay. No diagnostic fee. Shuttle her home if she prefers. The service writer moved. The trainee spoke up at once. I can help, he said, wanting to translate adrenaline into useful motion. Good, the writer said. Grab tools and the relay puller. The supervisor stayed at the terminal, unhappy in a way that comes from seeing a familiar map redrawn. He tried one more angle. If we start selling to every outside tech, he said, we'll be a parts store, not a service center. The director's answer was even. If we refuse help to people in front of us, we'll be a building with lights, he said. Not a place anyone trusts. He let the words rest. They were not for debate. The security guard stood a little closer to Marcus and, in a low voice, said, You walked the line well. Marcus shrugged in a small way that meant he did not want praise for doing what needed doing. The guard's eyes slipped to the scuffed coin on Marcus's keys. He could have said something then about service and teams and training, but he did not. He respected the quiet. A new complication arrived like a test. The overhead door near the back bay hiccuped and stopped halfway down. A warning chime sounded. The control panel flashed a small red light. Someone had pressed the wrong button at the wrong time, or a sensor had picked up dust from the extinguisher spray, or a circuit was tired. The result was simple, the door was stuck, and the narrow opening jammed the flow. The shuttle van could not exit to take the mother and her kids home. The delivery truck could not back in to unload. The lane's heartbeat stuttered. All stop, the director said, raising a hand. He called to a technician, kill power to bay door 4 at the panel. We'll release it by hand. The technician moved fast. The panel clicked. The light went dark. 2 techs reached for the chain hoist to lift the door. It had not been used in a while. The chain was stiff. It groaned and then moved a link at a time. The trainee looked at Marcus with a question in his eyes that he did not speak. How do we keep order when the tools fail? Marcus, without stepping into anyone's job, pitched his voice to the people closest to the door. Clear a path to the side, he said. 1 car at a time. Talk, don't wave. The words were gentle, and they became a small rhythm people followed. The security guard backed it with the same steady tone. Thank you. 1 at a time. It took 3 minutes to lift the door by hand. They locked it in the open position with a safety bar that had dust on it, and someone made a quiet note to clean that bar before tomorrow. The shuttle van rolled out with the soft hum of a fresh battery. The driver smiled at the kids and offered water bottles with paper straws. The mother looked at Marcus one more time and said, I don't know how to say thank you big enough. Marcus said, You just did, and that was enough because gratitude does not need big words to be real. The relay swap on the SUV took only a few minutes once the part arrived at the cart. The service writer clicked the old relay out, clicked the new one in, and turned the key to accessory. The ticking did not return. He tried start for a second and then cut it off, listening for any bad sound. The dash stayed clean. He looked up at the mother and said, "It's behaving. We can still shuttle you if you'd like, or you can drive home and we'll call you tomorrow to check in." She chose the shuttle because she wanted the day to stop being a test. The van door closed. The driver gave a small wave. The kids waved back. The stranded driver across town texted again. Marcus walked to the counter where the supervisor had placed the small white relay box with the printed part number. The supervisor slid it across the counter without meeting Marcus's eyes. The moment carried the weight of an apology that had not been spoken. Marcus did not make it heavy. He said, "Thank you," plain and direct, and tapped his card. The receipt printed with a quick chatter. He tucked the relay into a padded pocket of his pouch and felt the tiny square settle like a promise kept. The service director asked Marcus to wait one more minute. He gathered the staff near the pillar with the extinguisher. He held up the inspection tag that should have been punched last month and was not. He did not scold. He assigned. "You," he said to the porter, "you own spill kits. Check daily. You," to the trainee, "you own extinguishers. Weekly checks. Log it. If a pin is missing, you find me. No blame. Just fix." The trainee nodded with relief. Clear jobs calm busy minds. Then the director faced the supervisor with the binder. The lane became very quiet without meaning to. "You refused a retail sale in front of a sign that promises retail parts," the director said. "You walked past safety gaps. You pushed a policy that protected numbers, not people. That ends now." He did not raise his voice. He did not point. He looked the man in the eyes and let the words do their work. "You will take the safety lead seat for the rest of the day," he said. "You will walk every bay and list what is missing, old, or wrong. You will fix what you can and log what you cannot. Tomorrow you will sit in our morning meeting and read your list out loud. Next week you will attend a customer care workshop, all day. I expect change." The supervisor stood still for a moment like a person stepping from one moving walkway to another. His face moved through a set of small expressions: resistance, embarrassment, and then the tired acceptance of someone who sees a line he has to cross to stay. "Understood," he said at last. It did not sound happy. It sounded honest. He closed the binder. For the first time that morning, he looked at the people instead of past them. He looked at Marcus, met his eyes, and gave a quick nod that carried a quiet sorry. Marcus returned the nod once, nothing more. The service director turned to Marcus. "We could use help teaching the first 5 minutes of any emergency," he said. "Just once. A short session. Paid, of course." Marcus looked at the clock in his head. He had a driver on a shoulder waiting for a relay. He had a schedule he tried to keep, not because he loved clocks, but because he loved doing what he said he would do. "I can't stay today," he said. "But I can come another morning and keep it simple." "That's all I want," the director said. "Simple and real." The security guard was quiet during this, but his presence gave the moment a sense of weight. He stepped closer and spoke low so only Marcus could hear. "I saw the way you checked the corners," he said. "That's not something you pick up on YouTube." Marcus gave a small, crooked smile. "Old training," he said. "Different life." The guard's eyes warmed. "It still serves," he said. They let the words rest there. The lane settled into a new pattern. Cones appeared where empty space had been. The absorbent bucket found a home near the pillar. The trainee wrote the date on a small whiteboard that nobody had used in months. Extinguishers, checked. The simple act of writing it made the promise real. The delivery truck finally backed into place. Boxes slid onto a cart. A quiet hum of useful work returned, thicker and steadier than before. Before he left, Marcus walked past the open hood of the sedan. The white dust from the extinguisher was still on the edges. The owner stood near it, calmer now. "Thank you for not letting my car be a big problem," he said. Marcus shook his head. "You stepped back when asked," he said. "That helped." The owner laughed once, soft. "I'll try to remember that next time life tells me to step back." At the door, the director caught up to Marcus with a clean invoice for the relay and a business card. "If anyone gives you trouble at the counter again," he said, "show this and ask for me." Marcus took the card and slid it behind his ID in his wallet. "I hope I won't need it," he said. "But thank you." He crossed the lot toward his van, the small relay safe in his pouch. The sun had climbed a little higher. The red coupe still turned on its platform under showroom lights, a small island of shine that ignored the messy, important work outside. Marcus unlocked his van and set his tool bag in its place. He looked back at the lane once more. The security guard gave a small salute of 2 fingers from the brow that was more hello than military. Marcus returned it with a nod. As he started the engine, he pictured the stranded driver reading his text and exhaling. He pictured the mother and her kids sitting in the shuttle, buckled, water bottles in hand, on their way to a quiet kitchen where someone would make lunch and the day would feel normal again. He pictured the trainee writing checked on a list each week and feeling a little taller because he was the one who kept that promise. There had been a fire, yes, but the harder part of the day had been the part without any flame, the moment when someone had to say, "We will do the right thing because it is the right thing." That confrontation had happened, steady and clear. It had not been easy. It had been needed. And now Marcus had a road to drive and a person to help on a shoulder, and he did what he always did when a job waited: he signaled, he checked his mirrors, and he pulled out with the calm of a man who liked making days better one small fix at a time. Marcus pulled onto the street with the relay safe in his pouch and the van's engine a low, steady sound. The sky was bright and clean blue, and the air held that midday warmth that makes roads shimmer. He checked his mirrors, signaled, and merged into traffic. His hands sat easy on the wheel, not because the day had been easy, but because easy hands make every job better. He thought of the stranded driver and pictured the exact exit where the shoulder widened near a cypress hedge. He called ahead on speaker and said, "I'm 10 minutes out." The driver's voice carried relief. "Thank you," he said. "I'll put on the hazard lights again so you can find me." He found the car with no trouble, a gray hatchback tilted a little toward the gutter, hood closed, driver sitting with the window half down and a bottle of water on the dash to catch the heat. Marcus parked a safe distance behind with his van's hazards on. He pulled on his reflective vest because he never worked on a roadside without it, even for quick jobs, which were the ones that sometimes surprised people. He placed 2 small triangles to guide traffic, then walked up with a calm wave. The driver stepped out, thankful and embarrassed all at once, the way people feel when they needed help for longer than they wanted to. Marcus kept the talk simple. He asked 3 questions, listened to the answers, and then opened the fuse box with a soft click. The relay swap took under a minute because he had done it 100 times and because he didn't rush the part that needed care. He asked the driver to turn the key to accessory, then to start. The hatchback caught cleanly on the first try, the idle smooth and even. The driver laughed, a sound that came from deep in his chest, and then put a hand to his face because the day had asked a lot of him. "I'm good to drive?" he asked. "You're good," Marcus said, "but take the long way home, less traffic, and stop if anything feels wrong." "I'll follow for a mile." The driver nodded. "You're a lifesaver," he said. Marcus answered the way he always did, "Just doing my job." They eased back into the lane, triangles collected, van following at a respectful distance. The hatchback stayed steady. After a mile, Marcus flashed his headlights once in a friendly goodbye and peeled off toward his next appointment. On the light, he texted the service director a short note, "Relay acquired. Customer safe." The reply came fast, "Thank you. Safety checks in progress. We'll follow up." Marcus slipped the phone away and let the road settle him. He didn't think about the morning as a story. He thought about the next tasks, the next van check, the next small promise to keep. In the late afternoon, while he was finishing a brake job in a quiet driveway, a call came from the dealership's number. It was the service writer. His voice sounded clearer than it had earlier, as if the lane's new rhythm had reached the office. "Just wanted to update you," he said. "We replaced extinguishers with fresh tags, staged cones, and set the spill kit where it belongs. We also adjusted the sign so it's level. Small, but it felt good." He hesitated, then added, "The mother and her kids got home safe. We'll check on them tomorrow." Marcus said, "Good," and meant it. He didn't need more words. The writer understood. "Also," he said, "the director asked if next Tuesday at 8 a.m. works for that short training you mentioned." Marcus glanced at his calendar taped above his van's bench. "Tuesday works," he said. 30 minutes. First 60 seconds, clear and simple. Evening came on quiet. Marcus parked his van, tidied the back shelf, and wiped his tools with the same steady care he gave the engine bay that afternoon. He set the worn challenge coin on the bench for a moment and looked at it in the soft garage light, not to remember the hard parts of his old life, but to remember the people who taught him to keep his voice even and his eyes on the corners. He slid the coin back onto his key ring. He locked up, showered, and made a simple meal. His phone buzzed once more, a photo from the dealership's security guard. It showed a neat row of fresh red extinguishers with green pins and a small whiteboard behind them that read, in block letters, "Check Tuesday." The guard had added no words, just a thumbs up emoji. Marcus smiled, typed a short "good work," and put the phone face down. Tuesday came fast. Marcus pulled into the dealership a few minutes before 8. The sun set bright panels on the glass again, like the morning of the near fire, but the lane looked different now. Cones were staged in pairs, the spill kit sat at arm's height, and a printed sheet about engine bay smoke "Do not panic, engines off, space, short bursts" was clipped to a board where everyone could see it. The trainee stood straight by the board, a little nervous and a little proud. The supervisor with the binder was there too, without the binder, holding a notebook and a pen. The service director and the security guard flanked the small group the way calm people flank a room. Marcus didn't bring slides. He brought a marker. He drew a simple box for a car, a small flame at its corner, and 5 lines of print: stop, space, speak, see, safely act. He kept his sentences tight and clear. "First," he said, "kill engines in the lane. Silence lets you hear trouble. Second, make space. Cones or bodies, but make it clear. Third, speak calmly and plainly. People want leaders, not shouters. Fourth, see the base not the smoke. If you deploy, it's short bursts at the base. Fifth, safely act, then watch for a relight. Disconnect power if possible." He handed the can to the trainee. "Your turn," he said. The trainee repeated the steps without looking down. His voice shook on the first word and steadied by the third. Questions came, good ones. What if the hood won't open? What if someone keeps filming and stands in the way? What if I'm alone? Marcus answered each with the same tone he had used in the lane. Side angle. Don't stand in front of a gap. Ask for help. People want a job. Give them one. He asked the security guard to add 2 points about crowd control and exits. The guard did, crisp and kind, and the group took notes like the words might be needed any minute. The supervisor cleared his throat then. He looked at Marcus and said, "For everyone to hear, I'm sorry about last week. I didn't see what I needed to see. I will do better. He didn't force a smile. He just said it. The room changed a degree warmer because honest words warm rooms. At the end, the service director held up 2 sheets. One listed safety items checked and replaced. The other listed a new policy, retail parts available as posted with safety and courtesy. He pinned both to the board and said, "We'll live these." No speech. No fanfare. Just a promise in writing and people in the room who would hold him to it. He turned to Marcus and offered a modest envelope for his time. Marcus took it because saying yes to fair pay is its own form of respect. "Thank you," he said. "Keep it simple, and you won't need me again." As he walked out, the mother was coming in with a small box of pastries for the staff and a handwritten card that said only, "Thank you for hearing me." She saw Marcus at the door and stopped with a surprised laugh. "It's you," she said. The kids weren't with her, they were at school. She told him the SUV had been fine, and that the shuttle driver had recommended a park they visited on the way home to let the day calm down. "We found a bench under a big tree," she said. "We ate crackers and just breathed." Marcus said, "That sounds like a good stop." She pressed the card into his hand and said, "This one is for you." He slid it into his pocket without reading it in front of her because some thanks feel bigger when you open them alone. Weeks passed. The dealership's lane grew boring in the best way. Engines idled, then clicked off. Cones stood where they should. The trainee made weekly rounds with a punch tool for tags and became the kind of person who noticed a missing pin from across a room. The supervisor, now the loudest voice for safety drills, caught a small coolant leak before it became a big problem and wrote it into the log with a quiet satisfaction he hadn't felt in years. The service writer started saying, "Give me 10 seconds to listen," when a walk-in looked worried. 10 seconds solved more than policy ever had. Marcus kept working his routes, early oil changes for night shift nurses, quick breaks before weekend trips, a roadside fix now and then when a family needed to get home. He didn't talk about the morning at the dealership unless someone asked, and even then he said less than they wanted. He liked a simple day made better by a few simple choices. He kept the director's card behind his ID. He never needed to show it. When he did return to that counter for a small part, the new clerk said, "Morning, sir. Retail parts available," with a friendly grin that turned the posted promise into habit. On a Friday afternoon, Marcus stopped by the dealership to drop off a thank you note of his own. The community board by the door held a new photo, staff lined up with fresh extinguishers and a caption typed in clean font, "Prepared." A second photo sat beside it of a shuttle van parked under a shade tree in the park the mother had mentioned, 2 paper water cups on its dash like little flags of relief. There was no caption on that one. It didn't need one. Back in his van, Marcus finally opened the card the mother had given him. Inside was a simple message written in neat, careful letters, "Thank you for your calm voice. It made my kids feel safe. It made me feel seen." A small drawing of 3 stick figures under a big tree filled the bottom corner. He closed the card and put it in the glove box next to a map he hardly used anymore but liked to keep. He sat for a minute and let the quiet fill the cab. He thought about how days turn on tiny hinges, one word, one look, one small decision to help or to hurry past. The sun began to drop, warm and low, painting the windshield with a soft gold. Marcus turned the key and listened to the engine settle. He glanced at the scuffed coin on his keys, felt the old edges with his thumb, and then let it fall back to the ring. He didn't need the coin to remind him who he was. The work did that. The people did that. The lane, tidy and ready, did that. He pulled out slow, waved to the security guard at the door, and joined the flow of cars heading toward evening. Somewhere ahead, another small job waited, a battery light, a loose belt, a worry he could turn into an answer. He smiled once, small, and drove on, steady hands on the wheel, steady voice in his pocket, ready to meet the next first minute with the same calm care that had already changed a place.